Hello, I'm going to be talking about the 5 books that have influenced me, inspired me the most. I got the idea when they made a TV series from the Margaret Atwood book Handmaid's Tale. And I remember that having a big impact on me. My English teacher gave it to me to read when I was about 14, and she said that she thought it would appeal to me. I read it and she was right, I was fascinated. So I was going to include that, but then I thought further and I kind of thought, is that genuinely one of the 5 that have most influenced me? And so I've had a soul search and came up with my top 5 important books in my life. Okay, number 1 is Alice in Wonderland. When I first read it, like with a lot of things that end up being my favourite things, I hated it. I mean, I really hated it, and I was probably about 8 years old or something, and I remember saying to Mum, "Oh God, this book, it doesn't make any sense," and I was really cross. But then I couldn't stop thinking about it, and a while later I went back and reread it, and I remember in primary school that year I was just writing the weirdest stories. Whenever we had to do write a story for class, mine would just be off the wall and surreal, and I think that it had more of an effect on me than I realised, and so yes, that's my number 1. Number 2 is Douglas Adams' Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I was probably about 11 when I read this, and it was so exciting to read a book meant for grown-ups, and I remember finding it really funny, and it was just so much cleverer than the kids' books I'd been reading before. And I think the humour side of things in writing is actually quite hard to get right, and he manages to make a space sitcom on the page and also on radio and so on, where it doesn't feel overdone. Like I sometimes feel like humour can take away from the story sometimes, and this isn't going to make me popular, but it's kind of the reason I'm not a fan of Terry Pratchett. I feel like he values humour over the story, and it can get a little bit annoying, but I loved Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I still enjoy it now. Book 3 is Frankenstein. I was 14 again when I read The Handmaid's Tale. I was 14 as well, and I was going through I'm such a goth on the inside, because I wasn't ever a goth, but all teenagers are goths deep down, and it is what led me on to horror. Again, I was enjoying the fact that it was horror meant for grown-ups, it wasn't the childlike stabby horror I've been reading before. And that then led on to me enjoying Victorian ghost stories and other kind of low-key, spooky things. And of course it's The Tale of the Outsider, which obviously appealed to me as a 14-year-old girl, and still appeals to anyone who feels a little bit outside of the group, I just think it's a wonderful book, and I'm amazed that she wrote it when she was 19. Number 4, I'm going to cheat a little bit. When I was 17 and I was at college, which is the interim period between school and university, or college as Americans would say, my mind was suddenly open to all these new things, these new artistic things. I was watching Eraserhead and other David Lynch, and I was reading these books that I had no idea existed, and 3 of them off the top of my head were Naked Lunch, Clockwork Orange and Junkie. And I remember I read them all in very quick succession, which is why I'm going to include all 3. I'd obviously enjoyed horror up until then, and to me that was like the weirdest that you could get, and suddenly I found out that you could just get so much weirder. There was this whole cult side of writing that I'd previously been unaware of, and I was really excited. It kind of unlocked something in my brain, and I wanted to go down the rabbit hole of how strange can you get, how, you know, what other kinds of artistic expression are there, and those were 3 of the main culprits. Number 5 is when I was at university, or college as Americans would... Oh, sorry, birds are doing it over there. Number 5 is Haruki Murakami. I think it was called The Elephant Banishes, and it was a collection of short stories that I read about, I don't know, 1920. And again, it had the same effect as Alice in Wonderland. I read it and I felt really frustrated and kind of put it aside and didn't think about it for quite a few months, but then kept thinking about it and went back to it. Some of the stories were quite immediate to me. They were instantly enjoyable, like the second bakery attack, which I just loved the absurdity of it. He tells his, I believe it's his wife, that he once tried to rob a bakery but it didn't go well. So she convinces him that the thing he has to do is try again, of course. And so they drive around, I think, looking for a bakery to rob, but they can't find one, but the McDonald's is open, so they go to that instead. But others were, I didn't understand. God, they're being really loud. I didn't understand what he was saying, like the TV people are 30% smaller than normal people, and then his wife disappears. What's going on? What does any of this mean? I don't understand. So I took a while to recover, but then I feel like my journey into weird kind of went in layers. I moved forward as much as I could at the time, and I think around 1920 was when I discovered Surrealism, and of course ever since then I've enjoyed Leonora Carrington and so on, and now I'm a fully fledged weirdo. Okay, I think that's probably about it. I'm off to read someone's fortune and break up the birdie party over there. I'll see you soon.